They don't know your story.
You don't know my story.
You don't know
The
my
things.
You don't.
Good evening, GX family, here in the UK and all around the world. How you all doing? Welcome to Michelle Hemmings' Organ Donation Life Stories. Now, before I have a little chat with my next guest, I'm just going to give you some exciting news. So, the spin-off for the awards in the USA has started, and there are quite a few categories that the GX Radio is included in. So I would like you all to get your pens and paper ready and write down this of how you can vote. So it's www.thespinawards.com. Let me say that again. It's www.thespinawards.com, and there are 5 categories that the GX Radio is on. So we would like you to vote us on the best online radio show, that is a GX radio station, the best radio show, that is a GX global radio show, best co-host, Chani Chan, best co-host is D Shy, and at B, is the best radio personality. So if you could all go to the www.thespinawards.com and please enter us into the voting stages. Thank you. Now we're going to invite our next guest, who is Angela Ditchfield, and she's going to come on. Well, she's already here. So welcome, Angela.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's great having you on here. I know you've been busy working, so we are very lucky to have you on here. Thank you. Right, let's get straight into it then. So, Angela, can you tell our viewers your name and whereabout in the UK do you live?
Yep. So I'm Angela Ditchfield, and I live in a place called Horton, which is near Preston in Lancashire.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I think I've been there once or twice to like the beach. You got the beach
Yeah.
down there? Yes.
Nearish the beach, but it's always
Nearest.
raining. It's always raining here, so you know where.
Tell me about it. Okay. So your role is a snod. I'm not going to be rude, but can you please let us know what snod means, please?
Yep. So we're called SNODs just for short, because our title is Specialist Nurse for Organ Donation. So we work with senior nurses who've come into the role to support families through organ donation.
Okay,
not a very nice
great.
term, but
I know. That's why I asked you to explain it, but thank you for the explanation. Okay, which other hospitals or what hospitals do you work in or have worked in?
So we're not employed by the hospitals, we're employed by NHS Blood and Transplant, but we support the hospitals nationally. So most national acute NHS hospitals are supported with a SNOD, Specialist Nurse for Organ Donation. So because of the region I work in Lancashire, and the reason I live, I support the northwest of the UK. So that's everything from Barrow in Furness to Bangor in North Wales, Crewe, everything in between, and also the Isle of Man. So as a team, we work in teams, regional teams, and there's 12 regional teams. So I just work in the Northwest region. But there's 12 regional teams all across the UK.
And how long have you been working as a SNOD nurse?
So I've been a SNOD for 10 years now. Before that, before I started as a SNOD, I was a sister on critical care. I worked on the intensive care unit, and that's where I once I trained to be a nurse, I went straight to intensive care, and I continued there, became a sister, and then became a snod, and I've been doing that for 10 years now. A lot of the snods who from the workforce that we have are all from sort of an intensive care, a critical care background. We do encourage more people to come from different backgrounds, but predominantly that's where we sort of have worked as a career prior to becoming a snod.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Mhm.
So do you go to like the family's home, or do you meet up somewhere, or?
So what we do, our role is really supporting the intensive care units and the special, the critical care units. So like the emergency department, critical care, we support them units, and we support to train staff about organ donation and how to refer patients and what organ donation is about. And then we're there on site then. So if there's any referrals, they can come straight to us and we can support the families. But so we work in them hospitals in that area, in intensive care, critical care. And it's anybody who's approaching end of life. So if the doctors can't save these people and they're in intensive care on a ventilator, on a life support machine, and they're coming to the end of their life because there's nothing more that can be done, then we then work to speak to the families to offer organ donation as a choice at end of life. There's only a very small percentage of people who can actually become organ donors because, like I said, you've got to die in a situation where you're on intensive care and on a ventilator, on a life support machine. And there's only a very small percent of like the UK population who die in that way. It's like 1% of the people who die in the UK die that way. So we need to make sure that we offer every family that choice for their loved ones to become organ donors if they possibly can, which will mean that we're helping to save people who are waiting for life-saving transplants. It's really important. So
It must be really hard for you guys, to be with the family and try and be
mm.
there for them and encourage them. Have you had any families who probably doesn't want to go down that road, that route? How do you cope with that?
Yeah, I mean it is a difficult job because obviously we're meeting families on a daily basis who are losing someone they love, and it's the worst day of their life, and we've got to make sure that we offer organ donation because lots of people want to become organ donors and help others at the time of their death. So but we get really good training. So like I said, the majority of us have been experienced in nursing. We've worked in areas where we've been nurses for quite a while, but then when we come into the snod role we get lots of training with regards to communication and working with families. So I mean, it's difficult, and we do get families obviously that say no, and
Yeah,
that's completely respect whatever decision families make. It's just an end of life choice, and we just are there to support them, to give them the correct information, and if they want to go ahead, then we help to make that happen. There's lots of like myths and misconceptions around organ donation and what it is. So as experts and specialist nurses, we can be there to make sure that that family have got the correct information so they can make a decision on the right information rather than false information. It's very difficult, but at the same time, it's an amazing job, brilliant job, and it's a privilege to be able to work with families like that and in that situation and be part of, an awful situation, yes, but they're doing
yeah,
something amazing. So
definitely.
yeah, it
And
is.
to give
It's
that
amazing.
person, and to give that person that gift of life, it's more amazing as well, like
Yeah,
myself. So I
yeah.
feel privileged to be here myself too.
And
And
it's great
has
for me
your
to see you being here. 'Cause we only
finally,
see the death, the death and the dying side. That's what we see as specialist nurses, and then the transplants go to whatever transplant centre and are given to people like you. And so it's brilliant for me to see how well you
oh,
work and how brilliant it is. So I know that I'm doing a good job.
that's great. As for me, I don't see what's happening behind the scenes. I would just call into hospital and cleanse myself down, put on my gown, and I know there's somebody here or the organ is on its way. So I don't know anything about anything else, but I do think I do, and I still do think about my donor. My donor was a young female in her early 40s, and I'm so grateful for her family, to Papworth Hospital, to my family, to my friends. And I'm just glad that I've been given the extra 3 and a bit years to raise awareness for organ donation, because I was told that if I hadn't have had the transplant, I would only have had up to a year. So I'm so grateful to be here, seeing the
Yeah.
wonderful weather, even though we do complain, oh, it's too hot, it's too cold, but I am glad to be here still.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's brilliant. That's so good. And that's what the families, the families who say yeah for organ donation, that's what they want. They want to know that their loved one's gone on to help to save somebody else's life, and they're proud of that. It's an amazing thing. And so it's just brilliant to be able to,
yeah,
it's unique job, but it's great to be a part of that. And really, we're really thankful for them families for letting us be a part of
yeah,
that. It's so
right.
special, even though it's a tragic time. It's where we work with them to make sure that we can really get the best outcome, like giving a transplant and saving a life like you. So it's brilliant.
Thank you, thank you. And as everybody know, the new law change came out last year, May, which means that all adults in the UK are considered to be organ donors. So what we're asking you is to, have that conversation with your families. Just have a sit down, have a small chit chat about what you would like for your, in case anything happens, what would you like to happen after you've passed away. So it's important to have that conversation. Leave them certain, and just have that conversation when you can. It don't have to be an everyday thing. It could be just a one time conversation. But please, have that conversation so everybody knows what everybody needs for that end of time. So I've got a few messages here, and I've got one from the GX, and they are thanking. Oh, they're saying greetings to yourself and myself as well. And Donna's saying greetings from the GX family.
Thank you. Great.
Okay. And GX family is saying blessings and welcome, Michelle and Angela.
Thank
Now,
you.
that's great. If anybody's got any more messages, please put them in the chat box. We would love to hear from you. And one more message. Thank you for sharing, Angie.
Oh, thank
Oh,
you.
Angie. Call you Angie now.
That's all right. I don't mind that.
Okay, let's get on to our next question. So what are your views around organ donation?
So obviously for me, it's an amazing thing to do. I think it's just so special, such a special thing to do, and something you can do very last thing you can do to help other people. And it's about humanity, isn't it? And being a good human being and wanting to help other people. There's such a small pool of people who can actually become organ donors, like I've already explained, and you're
Yeah,
more likely to need a transplant than you are to become an organ donor. That's like a fact. And for me, I always think, well, if I needed an organ, would I want to take one? And the answer would be definitely yes, if any of my family, So if I was willing to take it, then I should be willing to give it. So for me, it's like a really important thing, definitely.
yeah. Yeah, because there's
And
so many people out there in hospitals, at home, waiting for that special gift of life.
mm,
So the least we can do is, donate our organs to those who need it more.
definitely. And I think it's important to, like you said before, like to talk to your family about it. It's a conversation that you have, and you just talk. This is what I want if it did ever happen. If it did, and like I said, it's a small chance that it would happen, but if it did, this is what I would want, and then just get on, enjoy life. I think that's really important. But as long as you've shared that message, then that's really good, because we do meet families who really struggle to think, what, oh, we've never talked about it, and we don't like talking about death and dying, do we? It's not something like unless you're in my job where I talk about it every day, and for me, it's, but for most people, it's not something they like to talk about. So I think it's
No,
just really important to have that conversation and share that, like say, leave them certain with what you would want.
yeah, definitely. So all I'm doing is just encouraging people, educating people with my guests. So say if somebody wanted to find out some more information, is there a contact number or web address they can go to?
Yes, so I'll type the web address in. It's really a great website. If you just type in organ donation onto Google, the NHS Blood and Transplant page will come up, and there's so much information on there about everything, about the law change, about religion and faith. There's so much stuff you can read on there. It's great. So you can really do your research before you then decide what you want to do. Definitely.
Okay, great. Right. On top of everything that you're doing, I know that you're studying a particular course. Would you mind telling us a bit more about it?
Yes, of course. So I'm doing a PhD and which is I can't believe I'm actually doing it, but I committed, I did it. So I'm developing some support for donor families to like support each other after the death, because it's really difficult because we work on a national basis. It's difficult to have like support groups because we'd have to have so many everywhere,
Yeah,
it's impossible. So we're bringing them all together so that they can peer-to-peer support each other on an
yeah.
online platform. So
Okay.
that's part of my research. So hopefully that'll work and will make a
It
difference to
will.
donor families. Mm,
It will, definitely. Because I'm in a support group with the Royal Papworth Hospital,
mm,
and I can't remember how many's on there, but we all come on, we ask questions, we're there for each other, we support each other. So that's what the donor family would need as well.
yeah.
They feel like they're isolated, they're on their own, so they would like to get together with other donor families and
Mm,
talk, and especially with yourselves as well, and get that bit of encouragement. 'Cause it is hard to lose
mm,
someone and to
yeah.
know that they've donated to other people to save their lives. So yeah, they do need that encouragement.
I think that's the thing that I was thinking, after the donation, they probably will have lots of questions about,
Yeah,
what's happened and then so at least if they can talk to each other about the thoughts and the feelings and from someone in a similar situation, should help.
definitely. Okay. Um, have you any encouraging messages for our listeners out there?
I would just say from like a message to everybody is just to really but don't shy away from it. Just like really think about it. Get your message, get your information and your facts right, because there is lots of false information that goes around. And like they said, the website is really good to give you that factual information, and think about what you would want if you're in that situation. And then after you've made that decision, whether it's yes, I want to donate, and no, it's not, I think it doesn't matter. But as long as you've made that informed decision, then you can just share that with your family, and that's the important thing, sharing it with everybody. Obviously, in the UK, you can sign onto the organ donor register if you feel strongly about it, or you can sign off if you feel like you
Yeah.
really strongly that you don't want to donate, which is
Mhm.
great. But I think even doing that, you've still got to share that message in with your loved ones, because they're the people that we speak to. I know, as well as like losing someone they love, they don't want to have added stresses around, oh, what would they want, we need to make it right for them. So I think that's really, really important. I think definitely.
Definitely. That conversation is really important, just sit down and leave your family certain.
Yeah.
That's organ donation campaign, leave them certain. But yeah, what would you say to someone who's thinking of opting out? What would you say to them?
I would say that obviously we respect any decision of any families. I'd question the reasons why they're wanted to opt out, just to make sure that there's not information that's been misguiding for them, because we do meet
Yeah,
families that will say, oh no, we don't want this because of this reason, and when they discuss it with us, and we're like, well, that's not the truth, that's not what happens, this is what, and we'd go through it all step by step, and then there's been families that have gone, well, I didn't know that, and they've changed their mind. So I think it's really important that you really think about it and make sure that you've got the right information and before you make that choice. And then if you still want to then opt out, then that's absolutely fine. We respect that. I
Yeah.
mean, for us, it's really important, again, with like the sharing messaging with your family. We don't just, with the law change, we still work with families. We still respect families' decisions. So even that's why it's so important. If they know, then that makes it easier for them at that awful time. But for me, it's just about getting that message and that right information. I've worked with lots of communities over the past 4 or 5 years, and it's about going out and sharing the right, not the myths and the misconceptions, just making sure that people know, and that changes minds when people know exactly what it is and what it means and the impact it has on communities, families, society in general. Then people can start to think clearly about what they would want to do.
Okay. Do you work with the transplantees? So after the transplantation's been through, do you talk to the transplantees themselves? Do you support them? No,
No, we're
just the
completely
family.
separate. Yeah. So there's two teams. Like we're the side that deals with the family, the donor who's going to
Okay.
obviously donate their organs, and then we facilitate that. We go to theatre with the donor. We make sure that the transplant centres are communicated with, and the transplants go, at the coordinated time because it's time critical, and
Yeah.
we make sure that we're there for that, and then we'll stay with the person and we'll obviously care for the body, and after that's our job sort of done. The organs will leave the hospital and
Okay.
fly or go in an ambulance to whichever transplant centre, and
To
then
go
the
and save
transplant,
someone's life.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then the coordinators who deal with the transplant recipients, they'll then take over and they'll support the transplant. So we're two separate sort of teams, if you will, but we work closely together. And we're
Yeah.
obviously employed by NHS Blood and Transplant, so separate from the NHS hospitals. Um, Obviously for obvious reasons, because we've not, we don't want a conflict of interest, and we're separate, and we only come in after decisions have been made about end of life. But the transplant recipients who support, like you had a transplant recipient, didn't you, when you had they're employed by that hospital, so they work with that
Okay.
hospital, and so
Okay.
yeah, two separate teams, but closely
Okay.
collaborating.
Yeah. So are you actually in the theatre when it happens when they take the organs?
Yeah. So we
Yeah.
make sure we sort of meet the family, make sure that the transplant could happen, so obviously the critically ill people, so it might be that they're not suitable to be a donor, but we make sure that they are, then we'll speak to the family, and if the family
Okay.
agree, then we then do all the background work, the blood tests, the
Yeah.
information collecting, things like that, communicate well with the family. Then we bring in a specialist team to that hospital who'll perform the operation. We'll stay with
Okay.
the patient, and we'll stay with them all the way through until the end, and we'll go to theatre.
Um,
And so we sort of coordinate the whole process,
okay.
as whilst supporting the family and making sure. I mean, communication's key, and families,
Definitely. Definitely.
yeah. So then, after
Um,
the operation, we'll call the family, or the family can come to see the person, or whatever they want. We'll try and make sure we can do that.
okay. You got a lot to deal with, haven't you? And then you still have to come home to your family
Yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah.
Because you're used to you've been working as a snud for, was it 10 years?
10 years,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's
Wow.
difficult, but also the best job in the world. And I think you come home to your family, and I think you
Yeah.
appreciate life, and you appreciate,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think
Definitely.
yeah. But also, you've done some work, something good in your job, because we're supporting the family. We're making, even though it's tragic and the worst day of their life, we can make it a tiny bit better in the fact that they'll have that to that proud of their loved one, and the loved ones will live on in someone else. But then
Yeah.
also on the flip side, we've helped to get someone a transplant, a life-saving transplant. So it is the
Yeah.
best
Thank
job.
you. It
The
is.
best job in the
And
world.
I thank you all. I thank you all for your amazing roles, your job, your support. So yeah, thank you ever so much for
Well,
being
we
there
thank
for us.
you for doing all the raising awareness. It's brilliant. It's so good.
Thank you.
Because I can
Thank
talk
you.
all day about the role and the statistics and everything, but it's people like you that make a difference. So we're
thank
just really
you.
grateful for that.
Thank you. And I'm going to try my utmost to try and raise awareness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question. And can you tell our listeners your contact details or how to get in touch with organ donation once again, please?
Yeah, so they can go onto the NHSBT website. So it's www.organdonation.nhs.uk. It's quite easy, but even if you can't remember that, you can just literally type in organ donation and NHSBT, and it'll come up. It'll bring it up for you. It's easy to find. And I'm happy for people to contact me if they want to. I'm on Twitter, and you're going to ask me what my Twitter.
Just like myself.
And I'm going to have a look because I don't know.
It's okay. You take your time.
It's at Angie D. At Angie D 0198. So
Can you say that again, please?
Yeah, at Angie D 0198. So I'm happy for anybody to contact me and message me or whatever. That's absolutely fine. If you've got any questions or anything, I'm more than happy to answer anything.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for this week. I'm sorry to see, but I want to say a massive thank you to Angie for coming on my show and talking about her role as a SNOD, a specialist nurse organ donation. I got it. But yes, thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
And
Thanks so much for having me.
That's all right. That's fine. Thank you. Now, before I go, I just want to say an inspirational quote for you guys. So let me just read this one. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with all my righteous right hand. And that's Isaiah 41, verse 10. And before I go, I just want to read out the nominations again. So for the Spin Awards for the USA, I'm asking you to nominate us in the Spin Awards. So if you go to www.thespinawards.com, and we would like you to vote us for the GX radio station, Best Online Radio Station, GX Global Radio Show, for the Best Radio Show, for the Best Co-Host, Shani Chan, for the Best Co-Host, for D Shy, and for the Best Radio Personality, Annette B. So on that last note, I'm going to say thank you, Angie. Thank you to my viewers. Great. And we will see you next week. Thank you and goodbye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you, Angie.
Bye.
Bye.
Some people have seen where God has brought you from. They don't really understand it. They don't know your story.